ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to Lost in Postulation. I'm Neil Fitzpatrick, and joining me as always, he thought the earth was flat before it was cool, it's Nicola Volpe.
Yes, I did. That's why I've always run so much. I've been trying to find the edge, and,
unsuccessfully.
Unsuccessfully still, but you never give up hope, do you, with these things?
That's the whole point of the conspiracy theory. And I have to give a shout out to Flat Earth as being probably my favorite conspiracy theory. Maybe a future episode there, but wow, that one is... Yeah, it takes the cake.
And I appreciate that. Disclaimer for the listeners, I am not actually a flat earther. In fact, Neil, this reminds me of the time that when we used to work together, that you went around the office telling everyone I was an avid Trumper.
He's a Trumper.
Which wasn't true at all. No. And I just found myself having to defend this.
In fact, it was, if anything, it was worrying that so many people believed it, actually. That people were like, oh, yeah, I see that. It's like,
you're a convincing figure. You are abusing your credibility and your power.
Famously honest guy as well. So yeah, that probably didn't help.
Yeah. Well, you may have been fired by a major news network this week if you kept going down that track.
The Sid path. Yeah. Jeez. Crazy stuff.
Unbelievable. No, but great to be here. And Neil, let's start right off with our mundane postulation.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, when you're loading the dishwasher and it comes to the cutlery / silverware, putting it in the basket, the little basket where you're putting it in. Yeah. How do you approach that?
Okay, see, so this is a slightly trap question, or at least I can't answer it in too interesting a way, because our trap has a little grate on the top, which forces you...
The tray.
Hold on. So say, we have the little basket, right?
Yeah.
Now, normally that has like open boxes where you can just throw stuff in, whatever.
Sure.
But ours doesn't have open boxes. It has like another grate on the top, which forces you to put the knives, forks, whatever, bottom first.
So you close the basket.
You can't fit them in. Yeah, exactly. And I never even considered not closing the basket.
So that forces you to put them in which direction?
Bottom, as in non-utensil end first.
So holding end first.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, straight in.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, I'm a growing fan of the dishwasher. We have one here and we avoided it for ages because they're like, got to save the planet, save some energy. But it just saves so much time. And you can just throw stuff in there.
It's endured for a reason as a tool. But interesting you say that, because this is actually a very contested point for those that don't have this highly technological basket enclosure as you do.
Yeah.
Because there's two schools of thought.
Okay.
What I used to always think is put utensil end down first. So when you're unloading, you're not touching utensil end, which will then go in your mouth or somebody else in your household's mouth, right?
True. Yeah.
From a sanitary perspective.
Yeah.
What I was then told was that actually you shouldn't do that because they're not going to get as good of a clean as a result on the utensil end, which obviously is the more
important one that gets cleaned. Yeah. So it's like, which hygiene factor do you care more about?
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are, I was doing some research, and there's this dishwasher-ologist called Mr. Ashley, of course, hired by one of the main dishwasher companies, which we won't mention because they declined to sponsor this episode. And Mr. Ashley actually throws a bit of nuance into the whole thing. So he's a fan of the down verdict, so the one that I originally came from. But he also says you have to think of safety first. So regardless of, maybe you're an up verdict person, but knives should still be the exception to that.
Okay.
Because the worst thing you can do is get all your utensils all dirty with blood again because you're pulling out knives from the sharpen.
Falling onto it or something. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, I buy that.
So safety first, right? At least with knives.
Okay.
He then says that actually, if the handles are up, it's also easier to unload.
So he shares your analysis on
Apparently,
that one. Okay.
Yeah. And I've gone back and forth on this, remember, but Mr. Ashley really sending me in a certain direction.
Yeah.
He also says fewer smears and smudges that way.
From downwards. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then, though, he also provided extra tips. And this one is really interesting because I made this mistake so many times, especially when you're putting them facing up, but also facing down. Avoid the cutlery nests together.
Yeah, so space them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do not put all the spoons together because they will fit into each other and clump together, right? Literally. Exactly.
Yeah.
I, for matters of efficiency, used to always group the spoons, group the forks, group the knives, because I would pull them out and it could then just put them in their respective part of the drawer. But apparently, that's not a good thing.
Some chaos is needed.
Absolutely.
Now, I do trust the opinion of Mr. Ashley, despite him being in the pocket of Big Dishwasher. So I don't know, I wouldn't trust
all
him.
the lobbyists there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's massive. But I wonder, does Mr. Ashley have an opinion on some of the other kind of urban myths of dishwashing, right? I have two more that just pop into my head here. Number one, have you heard this one, which is you should put the dishes in dirty, don't rinse them first.
Yes, I have.
Apparently they need dirt to get clean in a way.
Okay.
So like if you sometimes people are like, rinse your stuff before you put it in the dishwasher, right? That actually will make it come out dirtier than if you had left the food on it, because the friction of the action, like the friction of the water on the dish, is what gets it clean. And
that part I hadn't heard.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Okay.
So if you pre-rinse, it'll actually worsen the cleaning job. That's the first thing.
Okay. I heard there was an environmental aspect to the not pre-rinsing, obviously,
Also
right?
that. Well, that's where I'm going next is apparently someone said to me once, I was like watching someone put something in the dishwasher and I was like, hey, don't you want to, save the planet, like save the energy and rinse it? And they whipped straight around and were like, actually, it's more environmentally friendly to use a dishwasher. And I was like, what are you talking?
whoa.
Yeah.
We go that
And
far.
I was like, what are you talking? That's nonsense, clearly. And I, with a lot of confidence, was like, what a load of absolute nonsense.
Right.
And of course, then skulked back to my desk and quickly whipped out the phone and Googled, is it more environmentally friendly to? And actually, like, of course, big dishwasher will tell you it's way, way, way more environmentally friendly. But still, there are some like impartial sources that would say, yeah, not a great thing to do to run a sink and rinse stuff under the running water. Like you're actually wasting a lot of water that way.
For up to 20 minutes, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas a dishwasher is going to use one load of water, wash all the dishes simultaneously with the same amount of water, let's say. So actually, apparently, it can be arguably, even with the electricity cost, more environmentally friendly to use a dishwasher.
And do you use your eco setting?
Yes, always.
Good man.
50 degrees eco all the way.
I'm proud of you.
Saving the planet, saving some money as well. Electricity costs being what they are. But
I have to be honest, sometimes when it's so loaded up, the dishwasher, and things are very dirty, I find that the eco setting doesn't do as good of a job.
That's probably true as well. And I wonder, you should double check your salt, because if your dishwasher is not putting in the hours, not putting in solid shifts, I've often found you can just top up that salt. Now, salt is another big scam, by the way, and let's not get too deep into this, but they sell dishwasher salt in bags, with Calgon or whatever. It's just salt.
You get it like 2 times a year or so, right?
But it's just salt. Like, and they mark it's salt marked up. It's just sodium chloride, right? So,
but it's a big bag of it, right?
Yeah, but you can go buy a kilo of salt, of like not table salt, but like salt granules, salt, rock salt or whatever, and you can buy it for a fifth of the price, and it's the exact same.
Look at you!
There you go, saving the listener some valuable euros on an annual basis.
So what do you buy in terms of salt then? You don't buy the dishwasher.
This is one of those fun facts that I know but don't necessarily adhere to.
Okay, so that's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, and I stand by that, proud of that. So of course, like the last one I bought was a big 1 kilo bag of like Calgon or whatever the brand is, Finnish or something, salt.
Fantastic.
Paid through the nose for it, but at least I know it's dishwasher salt.
Okay. And one last point, since we're going down this dishwasher rabbit hole, the wonderful world of dishwashers. Yeah. Pods or liquid detergent?
I suppose neither. What we have is these kind of compressed. I know. What we have is these compressed powder cubes.
Oh yeah, for me that's what I meant as pod. That's what I used.
I suppose that is a pod, because isn't there also like liquidy pods that you would put in? And I don't know. Yeah,
but isn't that more
that's for the clothes, right?
The clothes.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Maybe you don't want to interchange those.
So I guess I'm a pod guy. What's the other, powder? No, I don't like powder. No.
Oh, there's also powder. That's true. So there's powder, but then there's also like a liquid. I think
you put in the little. You put it in the little
into the same hole.
Nah, no thanks.
No, not happening.
Doesn't sound efficient. It sounds like you're wasting valuable liquid there.
Yeah.
Get the powder.
Get the powder.
Or the bricks.
Powder in a cube. The bricks of powder.
Yeah. Amazing. Jeez, had you told me this was the mundane topic before, I would have maybe said, wow, I don't know how much we'll get out of that, but there you go. We've absolutely smashed it once again with the mundane.
And listeners, as always, you can let us know what you think, what your dishwasher habits are in this case, by emailing us at lostinpostulation@gmail.com or finding us on Twitter. Where, Neil?
At impostulation on Twitter.
Fantastic. Listeners, keep interacting with us. I actually was at a dinner this weekend, and I had a listener who I didn't know was a listener come up to me and tell me, wow, your guys' point on where to sit on a plane and your frustrations really resonated. I was on a plane last week, and I couldn't get you guys out of my head.
Fantastic. Delighted to be tormenting the listeners on their travels around the world. And actually, let's come back to the plane topic one more time in future, because I have a hack for tall people on planes. So I'm going to dangle that as a little carrot for a future episode. Little hack I've uncovered recently. So yeah, let's save that for a future episode.
Great. I'm sure all the NBA players will appreciate that. We'll cut to a break and come right back. Listeners, welcome back to Lost in Postulation. And where else to start but you're probably all tired of hearing it already, those of you who aren't watching, but Succession.
We have to. We can't resist. It's too good.
It's too good. This is season 4. I predicted that it would be a fiasco, a disaster, not good at all. And I've been proved wrong, as I mentioned last episode. And Neil, here we are, 5 episodes in at the time of recording, and early thoughts?
Oh, just incredible. And like, every episode has been in its own way great so far, I really think. This episode, though, the one we just watched, episode 5, is the first one where the credits rolled and I had to fight the urge to go back to the start and just watch it again there and then straight away. It was so good, so dense, so much going on, so much beautiful scenery to enjoy, so many amazing shots, so much amazing cinematography on top of the amazing usual stuff, which is the acting, writing, direction, everything. I just thought it was kind of a masterpiece. More and more, I've been one of the skeptics who are like, well, let's see if they stick the landing. You know, I'm more and more with 3 episodes to go thinking, I think they've done it.
There may not even be a landing. They're just gonna fly off into the sunset and
just rocket ship to the moon.
It's incredible, really. We won't get too bogged down into what's going on in the season or any of that. The reason we mentioned Succession is because since we're so into it at the moment, and arguably the best show we've had probably since we came out of the Sopranos wire run. You might throw in their Game of Thrones as well, but this is really one of the greatest.
I think many shows have met maybe some of the highs of Succession, but no show has like hit the consistent highs of Succession all the way through. Game of Thrones being an example of one where at its best it was really, really good, but at its worst it was extremely weak.
Yes, exactly. And not much more to say about Succession now. We will do a bonus episode at the end of the season for all the big fans. But in the meantime, I think what I wanted to allude to is there's been a lot going on tangentially to Succession in the past few weeks. Not Succession content per se, but where we've been able to see a lot of what has inspired Succession.
100%. And life imitating art, as we say.
Absolutely. And that's the big thing. What we've seen is Succession really steals with pride from what's out there, but still manages to create its own world and not be tacky in any given way. And I think that the clearest thing about that was this recent piece in Vanity Fair, actually, about the Murdoch family and their succession drama, and how nobody is actually, the one big takeaway was nobody in that family is happy. And there were so many resemblances to the Murdoch siblings and the Roys in Succession. And it even went as far to show that in all the recent divorce agreements of the Murdoch families, there are clauses saying that you cannot use any of the material from that divorce litigation. It can be pitched to the creators of Succession.
No way, specifically?
Yes.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
It's crazy.
That's going to become more and more of a thing. I guess the super rich who surely can't avoid seeing Succession now being mentioned out there, they must be getting a bit worried by how skewered they're being on a weekly basis, just absolutely ridiculed in a sense. It's quite embarrassing. If I was a billionaire, if I was Jeff Bezos or Elon, I would be a bit kind of embarrassed to watch it. I'd be watching behind my hands a little bit, being like, wow, how are they going to make fun of me next?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And those egos can be fragile, no matter how big you are,
As we
right?
see on the show,
Exactly.
It doesn't take much. Those guys are human like anyone else.
And there's actually the story about Brian Cox told it, that he was at a cafe somewhere in London. Maybe this is a couple seasons ago. And this gentleman came up to him looking very distinguished and dapper and said, well, you're doing a great job. Congratulations. Really appreciate it. And then he goes, it's quite tough for my wife, but it's a great show. And Brian Cox just looks at him like, what's this guy on about? Like, tough on my... And he goes, yeah, my wife's a Murdoch.
Whoa. Jeez, I can imagine it is pretty tough on her and the Murdochs in general. Probably a bit of annoying as well, to be honest. Like I would be because it's not about the Murdochs and because it's, allegedly completely unrelated, and, Jesse Armstrong kind of with a wink and a nod often says, oh, no, it's completely,
Right.
not
Creative
inspired
pursuit.
by anyone. Yeah, in particular. I would be a little bit annoyed by just how closely it matches the Murdochs. But then again, it's not 100%. There are creative liberties taken. There are,
Absolutely.
new details. It's not just a Murdoch pastiche.
But it's really cool how, that creative process can happen where both of those things can be true, right?
100%. Yeah. And also some of the coincidental alignment that we've seen in succession with the Murdochs actually was written before it happened, if you get me. There was one, I think it mentioned in the piece you were talking about how there was an incident where Rupert was sick at an event and his son had to support him or something.
Right.
That actually happened after it had happened in succession, where Logan had gotten sick and Kendall had to support him. So with hindsight now, everyone's looking and going, wow, Succession is just copying everything that happened to the Murdochs. But no, I think actually some of it is just pure coincidence.
Right.
And normal that the storylines would evolve around things like an old guy being sick, which is what's going to happen in the real world too. Right. So yeah, I think amazing job by everyone. Can't praise it enough. I think the Emmys are absolutely locked up for this year, but yeah.
Absolutely. And the other thing that stuck out to me, now we're going to get to the postulation, but was a recent BBC interview, an hour long, with Elon Musk, where I couldn't help but think this is Lucas Mattsson from Succession.
100%. I wish I saw it actually, but I'll take your word for it. I can
Don't
only
watch
imagine.
the whole thing. No, really. It's like...
No. He's not a charismatic guy, really.
No, it's almost painful how he'll say things and do nervous laughs to himself, and then he'll turn the table and be hostilely interviewing the interviewer who says, well, we're not going to get into that now. Just super awkward in parts, but we have a character, for those that haven't seen Succession, very much clearly, at least partially, based on Elon Musk.
Exactly. I think we talked about as well the trope of the tech bro evil person who's now become a very common thing in Hollywood, and I think it's become quite difficult to do it well now. We've seen it so much in so many movies where the tech bro super genius, I mean, we saw it first and foremost in The Social Network where it was literally Zuckerberg, right? But now there's been so many movies, not least of which that Apocalypse one on Netflix starring DiCaprio, right? Where it was the same thing, where the villain was like an amalgamation, don't look up, was an amalgamation of a bunch of different, it was like Bezos mixed with Zuckerberg, mixed with Musk a little bit. So it's become an easy target, I suppose. And I'm so impressed with how Mattson somehow manages to be original and interesting and believable.
Right.
And it's probably a lot down to the acting from Skarsgård, which is just phenomenal. But
big time. And when we combine this with a postulation, Frank's Corner, Frank from Rhode Island, that he wrote us in, where he said, he asked us basically if we could develop a new TV series that is based or inspired on a real life event or topic, what would it be? And when we put these things together, we thought, well, that's what we're going to do for our next episode. We're going to create our own TV series. One
each. And my God, I don't know about you, but once I took this challenge on and started really thinking, it sent me down a serious rabbit hole. And I actually had a lot of energy for it. I was like, this has to happen. I want to see this now. So I hope the listener agrees once they've heard our postulations that these TV shows have some merit in their own right.
I love it. So basically what we've done, we've each given each other the assignment of creating a premise for our own series that we'd like to be explored based on, at least in the background, some real events, a la Succession, and then just rolling with it, casting it, finding showrunners, and doing the job. Yes. I had one, and I changed it at the 11th hour, actually.
Whoa,
so, yeah.
Found a new topic. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Well, how do you want to do it? Do you want to start, or I can start, or what?
You start.
Okay, cool. So without further ado, I'll give you the pitch for my series, and of course, I'm looking for builds here. So anything you think you can be improved, someone you would cast for a role, maybe you just let me know.
Moral support.
So my series, based on real world events, working title, Apollo.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is a series all about the moon landing, but not the science, not the event of the moon landing, not the technical achievement of landing on the moon, because that's been done actually quite a lot, as we know. Too much. Exactly. What I would like my series to be about is the politics and the power dynamics behind the moon landing, because it is unbelievably interesting. So the moment I started Googling this and put in something into Google to the effect of, why did they actually want to go to the moon, really? just from that point on, I was completely hooked by this topic. It is so insanely interesting, and there's some great media out there. So before I jump into my own little postulation, I can just give a shout out to two things. Number one is a HBO series from 1998 called From the Earth to the Moon. That's a Ron Howard directed piece with Tom Hanks involved producing. And that's what you used to see a lot more of, which was like a docudrama.
Right.
So it was really informational documentary interspersed with acted scenes. Now, from the start, you'll notice the acting is not phenomenal and the writing is not great. And it does a good job of retelling some parts of the moon landing.
It's a science class movie.
Yeah, very much so. You could wheel it out in front of the 12th graders and leave them to it.
You remember the TVs on wheels?
Yeah, oh
my goodness.
I missed them. I want to get one for the house. I think it would be a nice touch. And so that's one. And the other is a BBC podcast series called 13 Minutes to the Moon. Which is fantastic. That's a BBC World Service series interviewing many members of the Apollo crew, etc. And not just Apollo 11, which was the moon landing, but all of the Apollo missions up to 17, where only, I think, 4 people are alive today who walked on the moon, and they actually managed to interview some of them. But anyway, great podcast. Really recommend it. I'm here to talk about my series, though, which is called Apollo, as I mentioned. So what this series is about, in my view, is an examination a la The Wire, a la, let's say, Chernobyl, if I can drop some little kind of reference pieces. It's an examination of the power dynamics involved with the entire Apollo project. And it looks at it from numerous different angles. And I've got a list here of like characters who are involved. But before I get to the characters, I'll just tell you who's involved from a creative point of view. Now, this is my dream wish list. This is almost never possible to happen. It's just more my absolute, must-haves. So the showrunner, first of all, not very creative here, but it's David Simon of The Wire and The Juice fame. And the reason for that is because I think David Simon has the understanding of what I'm going for, which is a slow-moving, no hand-holding, no bombast kind of a series, right? No explosions, no background music, nothing like that.
Gritty.
It's gritty, but it's all in the dialogue. It's all in the words that get spoken and the way they're spoken. And what I'm here to explore is the complicated motives behind the Apollo program, because actually it's not so simple. It's not as simple as JFK made it sound, and I'll talk about that in a second, as to why they were doing it. And it's from the perspective of politicians, from scientists, from some businessmen, some key figures, let's say, in the Apollo project. And I think David Simon could accurately do a good job.
So we're going to 1960s USA, right? I mean, they land on the moon in 69, or are you starting even earlier than the 60s?
We have to start, I would say, in 55 or so, I think.
Okay.
And it can move quite fast through the timeline.
Sure.
And it finishes, I would say, in, let's say, 70 or something. Okay. Because it also needs to trace the aftermath.
Richard Nixon.
Although Tricky Dick doesn't feature actually in this series, I can tell you. He's
Does
not
his
even,
dog Checkers?
He's not on. Yeah, Checkers is in the series.
Okay,
but he doesn't feature, sadly. But some other presidents do. So how about, screenwriters then.
Yes.
I have a duo of screenwriters. You're going to love the second one, but here's the first one. Nick Pizzolatto.
Nick Pizzolatto, from Italian origins, at least.
Yeah, at least origins. But he was the screenwriter for True Detective Season 1.
Okay.
His first screenwriting work and an absolute masterpiece straight out the gate. His ear for dialogue, his ear for a snappy quip here and there, knowing what to give away, what to hold back, I thought was remarkable from True Detective. So I want him on board. And this is a bit of an outside call. Bong Joon-ho. Writer and director.
Unbelievable.
Oh, you reacted as if you might have him as well. You don't have him, do you?
I don't, but it just brings a smile to my face. Bong Joon-ho of Parasite fame.
Exactly.
From the Republic of Korea.
Exactly. The good one. He Southside forever. He, better than anyone I've seen, as a director, but also as a writer, captures power imbalances in the best way. He's able to examine power in multiple different angles and dynamics, and that's what we're going for here. So Let's get into the characters of my postulation, right? So we have David Simon, showrunner. We have Nick Pizzolatto and Bong Joon-ho as the screenwriters.
And you think they could gel?
Oh, who knows? I mean, it'll be the first time they meet on in the writers' room, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they can get some good chemistry together.
Mutual respect.
I think so. Yeah. Oh, it's hard not to, right? Like I'm sure they've both seen each other's work. So
wow. Okay. Yeah. What a shout, Bong Joon-ho
of all people. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the characters. And now, the point here is that each of these characters will have a little arc in the series. Maybe they have an episode each, or maybe it kind of intersperses. And the only dynamic I think I'm going to commit to now is that half or some of the time we're going to be seeing the day of Apollo 11, and the other half it's all the build up and all the aftermath. So it's like by the end of the series we will see Apollo 11 successfully completed, and that will have happened over the episodes. Let's say it's 13 episodes.
Yeah.
But then we will also, in that time period, on each episode, got a bit of the backstory, and then aftermath, you know.
Okay, so this is a mini-series, I guess you would call it, but like a maxi mini-series.
Yeah.
So 13 episodes, but not multiple seasons.
I think it's a one and done, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
Chernobyl vibes.
Okay.
In that sense. HBO, 100%.
All right. Love it.
So first of all, we have JFK and Jackie Kennedy, two of our main characters, played by... Let's see what you think of this. JFK played by John Krasinski.
Get out of town. Unbelievable. Boston's very own John Krasinski.
I see it. And what I want is a tasteful portrayal. I don't want, in this time and place, so I am going to, like, it needs to be kind of, subtle, which I think John can pull off and give it the dignity and the
height
charisma.
might be a bit too much, but I think we can work with that.
We can have him on a little platform. We can have him kneeling down.
John Krasinski, who's been great in Jack Ryan, actually. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that series on Prime. But
Quiet Place also. I think he's shown himself to be a serious actor, right?
Yeah.
So this is the breakthrough he needs. I thought of other bigger names. I was thinking Leo or things like that, but I just thought, no, it would be too distracting. And also JFK isn't going to be that big a character in the series. He's only in the first few episodes. So I just need someone to nail it.
Okay.
And then for Jackie Kennedy, I have Anne Hathaway. Now...
Yeah.
You see it because she actually has played Jackie in a movie called Jackie that I haven't seen.
Wasn't that Natalie Portman?
No, apparently Anne Hathaway. Yeah.
Okay.
Or unless my Googling has...
There's probably been more than one,
Yeah. I mean, let's see. But in any case, I think Anne would do a decent job.
Okay.
She doesn't have too huge a role in the series, but I think it's important to at least include because after JFK died, she spent a lot of time and effort publicizing his legacy and trying to highlight in particular the role that he played in the Apollo project and making that happen. So anyway,
I love that.
The main arc for JFK is that pre being elected president and pre announcing it in 1961 in Rice University, where he said, we choose to go to the moon. Before all that, he was actually a moon skeptic and a space skeptic. And he's on the record, I think as a senator, which he was just before being elected, he's on the record as saying like he wasn't totally on board with the space project. And it so happens that it was Sputnik being launched in 57 and then Lyndon Johnson, his vice president, convincing him that we needed to go to the moon, basically. And he completely shifted and changed his opinion completely.
Okay, Lyndon being from Texas, the home of NASA.
Exactly. And if you want to get into it, there's a great interplay of why Lyndon Johnson was chosen as JFK's vice president and how Lyndon Johnson took the mantle then of driving the Apollo project after JFK died. So probably that'll feature too. Lyndon is a character here, so let's get to that. But in any case, so the interesting part for JFK is like committing to the project, committing 8% of the national budget to the Apollo project, convincing the American public that it had to happen, both from a defense point of view to basically beat Russia technologically and also from the prestige point of view of putting America at the top of the world stage.
Absolutely.
So, amazing stuff. Next character, I'm going to fly through these a bit faster now. Lyndon Johnson, creator of NASA, pulling all the strings in the Apollo project, convinced Kennedy to do it, played by either Michael Shannon, who I really rate as an actor, or Bryan Cranston.
Michael Shannon, give me a...
he's in Knives Out.
Okay, yeah.
He's had a few TV series, but he's not like... you'll know his face when you Google, but he's not like a big name.
Okay.
But an amazing actor.
Or Bryan Cranston.
Yeah. Now, Bryan Cranston has actually been in the HBO series I mentioned earlier on, playing one of the astronauts. He played... Michael Collins, I think, or maybe Buzz Aldrin. But in any case, he's more than welcome to play Lyndon Johnson here. What's interesting about Lyndon Johnson is after his presidency, his health spiraled massively. He started smoking like crazy. He gained a lot of weight. So I'm also interested in kind of his spiral as a guy after the presidency and how his presidency kind of fell apart. And he announced he wasn't running for re-election.
Okay.
Anyway, one more interesting character, Werner von Braun. Do you know who he is?
Werner von Braun was, I have no clue.
Yeah. So you might have heard the name before, but he was one of the heads of NASA during the Apollo project. But he was a German scientist, former Nazi scientist actually, who was one of the key proponents of the V2 rocket, which was the Nazis' foremost technology that they developed. It was like an amazing rocket that they developed for weaponry purposes. But Werner von Braun, who went on to become a national hero in America,
right,
was essentially kidnapped or
A recycled Nazi.
Yeah, he was taken out of Germany in an operation called Operation Paperclip, where the US abducted basically over 1,000 scientists from Nazi Germany at the end of the war to stop them from being involved in either Soviet science or the German rebuilding effort. So he came to America in very weird circumstances, and always when he was in America had his motives questioned a little bit. Mm-hmm. He was always in the press, in public life, being a little bit under suspicion as like, yeah, but who's this guy really? Like, why is he working for us now? You know, all these things. So also a really interesting character, not least because also he was a serial womanizer. He worked his way through every woman apparently in the Nazi rocket program. He was renowned for it. So,
and did he keep doing so when he came over to Houston?
No. So funny enough, like I mentioned in episode 1, once you dig into some people, you really start to find some bad stuff. He married his 18-year-old cousin when he was 36, and they stayed together ever since. So in any case, we're not sure if I'll include that in the series, but there you go.
It's an asterisk on Werner.
3 ladies that I can quickly rapid fire here. So we have someone you might have heard of, Margaret Chase Smith.
Yes.
First female senator and representative. And she was instrumental to securing funding for the Apollo project. Mm-hmm. So super, super important, to be played by Edie Falco. So she has the looks, she has the age. She can. We need to age her up a little bit. But
Edie Falco, that would be a great comeback. I would be very happy for her.
As would I. Haven't seen her on TV in too long. Joanne Morgan, the first female NASA launch engineer. She was the only woman in the room in the Apollo 11 launch room. So in a room of like 100 guys, she was the only woman. There was not even a female bathroom in that building.
That makes it a very interesting character to dive deep on, right?
Talking about power dynamics, her struggle is not, political power. Her power is to try and be the only woman in a room full of men and to basically earn her spot there and to show that she deserves to be there. So
Absolutely.
She's to be played by Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen, okay.
The third Olsen, yeah. I think very sympathetic
That
character.
one came out of left field.
One more for you, and we're nearly done, by the way. I know this is a lot of names.
No, I love it.
Steve Bales. He was a 26-year-old or 27-year-old operator in the launch room also. So 27. But get this, right? The average age of the technicians and the engineers working in the launch room for Apollo 11 was 26. So these were, by and large, NASA had to hire like crazy. As soon as JFK announced they were going to the moon in that decade, NASA were just like taking every possible scientist and engineer they could. So it was people straight out of their bachelor, basically. They were like, come on.
Great place to make a career.
Exactly. And they would hire people and then just let them go. They didn't even interview them. They were just like, off you go. And if you mess up, we'll, obviously get rid of you. But then
if you mess up, the rocket blows up. But
exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah. But so the room was like full of 26, 25-year-olds, basically. And one of them was Steve Bales. So he was like fresh out of grad school. He actually came very, very close to aborting the Apollo 11 landing. So it was his job to basically give the all clear, to look at the systems and say, it's good, you can land. And he came perilously close. There was an error on the screen. He had to look up what it meant. He had to basically had like 5 seconds to decide, do we land or do we not, right? So again, quite an instrumental figure, to be played by Harris Dickinson. Now, do you know who that is?
Harris Dickinson.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look him up here because...
You've seen Triangle of Sadness, I believe, right?
Of course I have.
So the main character, the young guy, Harris Dickinson. Yes.
Okay, British, right?
So, yes.
Yeah.
But he can do an American accent. He's the same age as the guy, so I think
I really liked him in that.
Yeah. No, he's great. He has more to show, I think, Harris Dickinson.
Okay.
So we're going to get him on as well.
Let's get Harris on. Wow.
We're going to get him.
Good shout.
Last lady to bring in, Katherine Johnson, the first black woman to work at NASA, and Regina King will be playing her. So Regina King, you might know from the Watchmen series on HBO.
Regina King's done a lot. She's doing a lot of directing now as well.
Okay, so she might not have time for this, but I hope she does.
I think she'd make time.
I think so. So she was like a maths teacher who basically was called a computer at NASA before the word computer meant what it does today. Yeah. She was computing trajectories and arcs for various projects, and she was one of the best at it. So there was actually John Glenn, who was the first American in orbit. He specifically asked for her to double check the trajectory calculations for every mission, because he was like, if the girl says it's okay, then it's okay. So she was like hugely respected mathematician at NASA.
All-star cast so far.
All-star cast. That's basically those are my main characters, because then I have, of course, people like Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, blah, 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 but I specifically want them to be outside, because they're actually not, like, they're very important, but they're not their motives are not that complicated, right? It's like, I'm an astronaut, my job is to go to the moon, I go to the moon. Yeah. Whereas some of these figures that I've talked about, it's like, what were they after? Like, why were they so into it? Why was JFK, let's say, so committed to it, for example? Was it part of his re-election strategy? Was it part of his thinking it was the right thing to do? A bit like the Macron situation we have now with the pension dilemma,
Right.
So anyway, all of that to say, that's basically all I have, right? Because from here, it needs to be postulated further.
Wow,
right?
this is great. I really like the angle, the untold story part of it, right?
Exactly.
Because if you had come to me with another thing about the Buzz Aldrin and Armstrong and everything going up there, we've had enough of that. We've even had versions with Ryan Gosling, which I fell asleep through of that, right? So I really like this angle, the politics, the machinations behind it, and actually not focusing at all on the landing part, right? Yeah.
In fact, I was thinking no space shots at all. So like no camera angles that will be off Earth at all. So if we're going to sit during the moon landing, we're going to be in the launch center listening to the dialogue, to the kind of voice comms that's going on, right?
I think that's great. That's the angle. Now, it's an arms race at the time, full on Cold War. It's not just the US in isolation. How do we loop in the Soviet side of this? And
I did think of that. So one other way to do it would to have half the series take place in the US and the other half in USSR. The issue I found though is there's just way less material available to me to find out like who were the key players there and what was the series of events that
you don't say. From the Soviet Union, it's difficult to get material.
Yeah, shocker, yeah. But like what you can find is all of the publicly available media that they created, right? So after Sputnik went, after they put the dogs in space, after they put the first man in space, all these things, which by the way was a result of Werner von Braun's caution. He could have had the first American in space, but felt it wasn't ready. And 3 weeks later, Yuri Gagarin was launched into space by the Soviets.
It was too risky at the time.
Exactly. Okay. The issue is Russia or the USSR was willing to risk human life where NASA wasn't, basically. So anyway, so I did look into that, but I thought also because we've seen in Chernobyl, I'm not a huge fan of having Russian speaking or Ukrainian speaking characters speaking English with English accents, right? So if I was doing it, it would have to be with a lot of a full Russian cast, basically. And again, I'm just not going to do that right now for various reasons. But I did think of it. It's a good build.
Right. No, but I think that's quite cool. So that's a possibility. And then you're not having Nixon here. The funny thing about Nixon, right, is well, JFK dies, right? Then Lyndon B carries a lot of the weight. But it actually happens in the end. The landing itself happens during Nixon's first year on the throne, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of an injustice. Also because it wasn't...
he claimed all the credit, even though he barely did anything.
Of course he did. I'm sure his ratings went up. But other people involved in the launch, I think even James Webb actually left NASA in 1968 because Lyndon Johnson was leaving the presidency. And he said, I don't want to... He was head of NASA at the time, and he said, I don't want the new president to have to fire me, so I'm going to step out now. But then the next year they land on the moon, right?
Wow.
Now the only thing is we see it as Apollo 11 was the pinnacle, the crowning moment of the Apollo project. But actually Apollo 11 was just the latest in a series of planned missions up to Apollo 17. So all of the technicians and mathematicians who had worked on all the planning and all the maths, let's say for Apollo 11, by the time Apollo 11 was happening, they were already working on 12, 13, 14. So in their minds, 11 was just like, yeah, we did a lap of the moon, we've orbited the moon, now we're going to land on the moon, then we're going to send another team to the moon. So I think 11 at the time wasn't seen as the monumental moment that it now is seen as, which was like, wow, we put someone on the moon, you know?
Right, because they expected that to be the first of many.
Exactly. And actually it turned out to be the first of very, very, very few, shockingly. But then again, things changed and incentives changed. And I read a little piece about frontiers of power. And at that time, the moon was a frontier of power where more than one power source or holder of power wanted it, and therefore it was contested.
Right.
And then as the 70s unfolded, it was like, well, we don't really care anymore. Like, you guys can have it, you know?
Right.
And there became new frontiers of power like the Gulf and other places in the world.
Vietnam, whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's super interesting that Tricky Dick does play a role and does take the credit, or take some of the credit probably. But I think the only president who can really take any credit is JFK properly, because it was he who set the deadline, who stood there and said, we are going to the moon by the end of this decade.
Thanks to Lyndon B.
You could, among let's say probably the CSA or every part of the intelligence organization in America, which would have told them, Russia are going to do it first. They're going to lap us in technology, in weaponry, all sorts, you name it, unless we get our act together now, seriously.
Right.
But it was that single goal, that kind of monument ambition that he had, that led them to actually achieving it in time ahead of Russia. So I think JFK takes a lot of credit, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is going to be filmed on location in Houston and DC?
Yeah, we're going to be in Kennedy Space Center, or not as it was known then, but yeah, we're going to be on location hugely. We're going to be tracking all these characters from their education, even from their childhood, maybe in some cases.
Amazing.
We're going to be at Rice University when JFK makes that speech in
Harvard of
61.
the South.
Indeed, 61, and where many of the engineers came from, in fact. So it was a well chosen spot, and I think we're going to be only there. We're never going to leave US probably, unless it's Werner. We'll take Werner's story from Germany.
From Germany. Yeah. Okay, look at that. So a little trip with the whole crew out to Germany for
on location,
filming those
2
parts.
weeks filming, in and out.
Yeah.
We get it done. Yeah.
Because you haven't spent enough budget on the casting. Clearly.
This is going to be, it's going to go down as probably the highest budget. You heard about the cast, right? So it's going to be probably the most expensive TV series ever made. But there we go.
I love it. I mean, I think I'm very intrigued. I'm looking forward to finding this on my HBO Max.
I really think, genuinely, I got so into it over the last few days that if everything went horribly wrong, if I lost my job, if I had to start from zero, I might take 6 months and just try and bash out a screenplay.
Yeah.
It is so interesting, genuinely. Like, it's a limitlessly interesting topic. So many characters, so many motives, people involved. It's amazing. So I just recommend those 2 things I mentioned at the start for any listeners who have had their eye or ear caught a bit now by the moon landing as a topic. Avoid all the conspiracy theories, by the way. It's just total
it
nonsense.
just never ends that, right?
Yeah, forget about it. But
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the actual proper documentary descriptions of the moon landing.
Okay.
Amazing stuff.
That's fantastic. Now, one quick postulation, one final one on this. If you had to, there's a clause that you have to include an actor or actress from Succession. Who would it be?
Love that. The easy answer here is Tom McFadden, right?
Matthew McFadden.
Tom Wamsgans. Matthew McFadden. There you go. Add it to the list. Yeah, geez. I think that's the belt now for me for biggest mistake so far. But if we take Tom Wamsgans, I think he slots in quite well. Kind of as a politician, I could see him as either James Webb or Lyndon Johnson, maybe.
Okay.
I could take him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I could take him over the guys I mentioned.
I think he's got the chops.
Exactly. I don't see Mark Strong having a role. Sarah Snook,
Jeremy
maybe?
Strong.
No, my God.
You're
Jesus,
on a roll
I'm on
today.
the roll. Mark
Really,
Strong
like,
is an actor, in fairness.
I don't even feel bad about Steven Fincher
It's
anymore.
hard, isn't it? Jeez.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Strong, of course. Mark Strong is a great actor, though, in his own right. I recommend him. But Jeremy Strong, I don't see a place for him. Sarah Snook, I could see a place. Not off the top of my head. Kieran Culkin, a little bit too brash for this, I think. Like,
Okay.
I'm looking for a little bit more subtle actors, like people who aren't like, bam, 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 let's go.
This is a serious production.
Exactly. It's not for laughs, actually. So I even when I considered having Jesse involved, Jesse Armstrong, I was like, I don't want the jokes. I don't want the lols here. You know, it's really going to be more.
Bong Joon will keep him in check.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Not many, although there's some jokes in Parasite too. But you know, it's more about the comic absurdity than just like one-liners. You know.
Okay.
So yeah, good postulative question there. Who from Succession? So I think it's got to be Tom.
Fantastic. And of course, you have a great comeback from Sopranos fame, Edie Falco.
That's huge. Yeah. And I think
amazing actress.
she's been dealt a bum hand since Sopranos, because like she was used to the absolute best degree possible in Sopranos, but like really since then we haven't seen her smash it. She was in Nurse Jackie, I think, and a few other things.
Yeah, but leading role, right?
Yeah, but we haven't seen her really like hit the Academy Awards or anything like that. So yeah.
All right. Well, are you ready for mine?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
So I was originally looking at one scenario, right? And then I knew you'd come at me with the whole, oh, you can't just have people in a non-English speaking country speaking with British accents, which I respect.
Good.
And so I came up with something else. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to read you the premise of this show.
Do we have a working title, or do we need to postulate on that?
We need to postulate on that.
Okay. So
we need to postulate on a lot here.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you the premise.
Cool.
1980s South Africa.
Boom.
Apartheid is in full swing. Mandela and the leaders of the ANC are imprisoned. A crusading has-been alcoholic journalist from a wealthy Afrikaans family partners with a child acquaintance civil rights lawyer
Whoa.
for the ANC to spread news to the world about the horrors of apartheid and assemble an international coalition to bring it down.
Damn.
This is the untold story of how apartheid ended.
Oh, yes. I think that's criminally underexplored as a topic, apartheid. We've
Crazy,
had like
right?
Invictus and we've had a few.
Right.
Yeah. But it never really.
And that's already
Properly
like,
done. Yeah.
it's ending, Mandela's already president.
Yeah.
Here, you won't even see Mandela
Yeah,
once.
that was-
You won't
I was-
see
I was hoping.
Mbeku, right? It's what was the norm, who were the normal people
Yeah.
that did the day-to-day work to raise this awareness to the world and kind of create that internal pressure.
Huge. I mean, sign me up.
An untold angle, very much like you with the politics of the moon landings.
Exactly. The untold story. Yeah.
Here we move away from the politics of apartheid and we actually shift to that day-to-day legwork. And is there anything better than an alcoholic has-been journalist? A great
the
newspaper
anti-hero.
story.
100%. And almost a classic anti-hero. Someone who's flawed, who we can get behind, you know. Do you have, are we going to get casting
We have some
ideas?
casting,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Of
And
a
are these
core.
are real people or is it...
No.
It's
inspired by what I'm sure were a lot, but this is a creation.
Okay,
This
okay.
is
Cool.
a canvas now.
Yeah.
Now, I want to somehow also loop into this, and we can postulate about it later, some MI6/CIA involvement,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Must have, kind of. Some New York Times/British newspaper of your choice involvement.
Okay.
Probably not The Sun,
No,
right?
probably not.
Or the Telegraph, probably for that matter, either, right? At the time, apartheid, for a very long stretch, was actually very much enabled, you could say, by Western politicians, right? Even at one time, I think the late Queen was also saying Mandela, was not the gentleman she believed him to be afterwards.
Oh.
He was on a terrorist list in the US, right? Wasn't allowed to travel there. All of these things. So it wasn't as clear cut, which is part of the reason it went on for so long, right? And you had this very small but very wealthy, very powerful minority running a country until the end of the 20th century.
Yeah. It's kind of sad how recently, actually, it
Crazy.
It ended. Yeah.
Mandela took power, I think, in 94.
And you have to think that, like, ethics aside, it suited the world a little bit. Like, as in, it suited the powers that be, like
Right.
US and UK, that was the way things were. So they didn't intervene because, of course, it suited them not to, right? It was a stable situation from their point of view,
Right.
and not one that merited intervention to the same extent that, like, other places in the world, like Vietnam or Afghanistan, just, of course, yeah,
All the proxy wars, right,
exactly.
at the time.
We've got to get in there straight away, right? So kind of sad and a shameful part of our world history, not just of South Africa's, but
Yeah.
a great choice for a topic.
So now let's get into who's going to be involved in this. Nowhere better to start than making this a Spike Lee joint. He's had this script locked away for years.
Definitely. I actually wouldn't be surprised. This is right in his wheelhouse.
This is his energy.
100%. And he's going to nail it.
Total creative freedom, but of course he's joined by two allies who just want to be there for the ride. One with a lot of, knowledge, I think that he could apply to this, and that's David Simon. For you.
Of course. Yeah. He's welcome. He'll be busy doing both of these series, but
absolutely, back to back. I mean, imagine that.
Wow.
And then I wanted a punchy script. I want vibes. I want some humor. I want pace.
Okay.
So we're calling in Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, yeah.
We are calling him in.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
We're saying, Aaron, you're not going to direct this.
Yeah.
Stick to what you're good at, which
Write
is helping to write this screenplay. So
Okay.
the way I envision it is very much Spike's outline, getting a lot of information from David, and then Sorkin is going to actually be a dialogue specialist.
Do you worry, though? Here's my first concern. Aaron Sorkin, has he become almost a cliche or a parody of himself recently in his
I
writing?
think yes, and that's why I would say Sorkin, enough with this general management, line manager crap.
Yeah.
Go back to being an individual contributor.
Exactly. Okay, so you
Just
take,
do the dialogue.
Yeah, take everything off him other than that. Yeah, because I think at his best, he's phenomenal. Two Cathedrals from West Wing being the standout. I also worry, though, having seen like the trial of the Chicago 7, for example, where it's very Sorkin-y and people talking faster than is physically possible and reacting to things faster than, they ever possibly could. Love his work at its best. I hope that we keep him on a tight leash, though, for this project.
Yeah. I think Spike will manage that. Very interesting leadership style from Spike. I think they can work together. He's worked with Fincher, Sorkin, right? Yeah. He's worked with many big directors, actually. So let's give him a shot.
Has Spike done TV ever?
Spike has done like some feature films, that you'll find from time to time, but not more than that, and not recently. I think.
Okay. No, that'd be a great new frontier for him.
This is The man loves a challenge. And now we're going to hit the cast. So I've assembled a core cast, okay? So that's like my 4 key ones that I know for sure need to be in there, very much the main characters. Starting with the alcoholic journalist from a wealthy Afrikaans family, played by none other than, already alluded to, Matthew McFadden.
Yes.
He's going to pull on that thick, sumptuous Afrikaans accent, and he's going to kill it.
Do you think he can nail it? Yeah.
I think he can. If he can do a Minnesota accent coming from his British, I think he can mix in a bit of Dutch flavor into his English accent.
Yeah. Would love to see it. Leading man, though, I mean, have we seen him, Matthew McFadden, in any leading roles, like all the way through something?
Mr. Darcy, Pride and Prejudice, key role, right? I think it's time to let him fly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just wondering, he hasn't really been given the shot, at least in something huge. Like, we haven't seen him as the protagonist of a piece, right, all the way through.
But arguably, very arguably, the best actor, actually, in Succession.
One of, certainly. Yeah. Certainly one of the most versatile, being able to, the most chameleon-like. I mean, when you compare what he's doing versus what Kieran Culkin has to do, which is be himself. And no
be himself. When you see interviews with him, it's literally being himself.
It's literally him. Like, and that's a big insult to him, to say that. And I'm not saying for a second that he is that character. It's more just that he has to be himself, and that happens to overlap very much with the personality of his character of Roman. Anyway, I think Matthew will do a fantastic job. I hope he is okay under the pressure of carrying the series, basically, because it all rests on him,
Absolutely. And he's going to be put next to the ANC civil rights activist lawyer played by Octavia Spencer.
Ooh, Octavia Spencer, who I know from James Bond. No, from what?
You know Octavia Spencer recently. I don't know why this is the one coming to mind, but there was that Christmas movie with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, Spirited Away or so. From The Help, you would know her from a lot of things.
I see her. Yeah. Okay.
You see her.
I see her here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go to her IMDb. She's in The Help. Yes, she's in, but not someone I actually know very well from an acting point of view. No,
but she's been doing a lot of stuff. She's been brilliant, and I want her in this.
Well, there you go. Lock it in. We have our leading couple here.
Yes.
Is there a romantic element here? No.
There is no romantic element here, but there is a very emotional element, because essentially McFadden's family, and then we'll name this character at some other point, but Spike still needs to get back to me. His family, very wealthy Afrikaans family, landowning and so on and so forth. And Octavia's family was actually the help to his family when they were kids.
There we go.
She goes off, gets involved in the ANC, gets her law degree and everything. But there is that connection.
A little bit of conflict, a little bit of bitterness, perhaps, which comes bubbling to the surface at key moments throughout the series. I'm sure.
You go.
Wow. I like it.
Look at that. Huh?
They have to find ways to work together despite their differences.
Absolutely. Wow. Their differences make them stronger in this case.
Absolutely.
And then we have 2 others. Jessica Chastain.
Yes.
I want her in it.
You're a big Jessica fan, actually.
I am a huge Jessica Chastain. I think she might be my favorite actress.
It's just, I've never met someone who's so passionate about her work.
She's great.
Yeah.
Good friends with both Jeremy Strong and Aaron Sorkin, actually.
But no, I just was about to say Mark Strong again. But yeah,
Mark.
Maybe she knows Mark Strong, actually. But phenomenal. I mean, bring her in. She's more than welcome. Is she busy these days? Haven't seen her in anything too recently.
Apparently, and I was thinking the same. She does a lot of theater too.
Like that.
Very highbrow.
Yeah. Back to the roots. One for her, one for them. Yeah.
Exactly. So Jessica Chastain is going to be we need to see whether she's going to be McFadden's wife or whether she is going to be one of their key political contacts.
Okay. I like it either way. I think she's welcome and she'll have a great role to play no matter what.
Yeah. And Jessica, fantastic. Thanks for joining. And then finally, Wood Harris.
Wood Harris. And not Woody Harrelson.
No, definitely not. Avon Barksdale from The Wire. Wood Harris.
Wow. I had some...
Julius from Remember the Titans.
Yeah. I had some weird idea that he was dead, actually. But no,
no, please.
Wood Harris. So he's still...
I saw him in a series. He was in a series called Winning Time last year about the 1980s Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay. Wood Harris. Yeah. I mean, amazing job in The Wire.
Yeah, Wood Harris is going to be there, again, either as the husband of Octavia Spencer's character or as an infiltrant, a connection.
Yeah. I mean, what a cast. You
Wood
have
Harris.
An absolute power quadrant here.
Absolutely.
This
And
is,
Wood Harris now having aged, but still looking great.
Yeah, what age is he now? He's probably like 60.
He's got to be at least 50, I would say, right?
And so is Octavia. She's like 57 or 60 or something.
Yeah,
Right,
probably.
Yeah. So it's a kind of an aged cast you have here.
Yeah,
So,
a little bit, but they can pull it off.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure.
With strong faith in them.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. So that's who we're going to go on this journey to South Africa with. And this will be a multi-season, I think.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I think we're going to go for that. I'm not talking 5 or 6, but, 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
So where does season 1 end then in your mind?
So we're starting in the 1980s, right?
Okay.
And we don't actually have the negotiations happening till the early 90s, right?
got 10
Between
years to
Mandela, F.W. de Klerk, and all those guys.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably going to get to between some background, right? And the building up of the characters. And if we say it's like a 10 episode first season, we probably get to like a watershed point in the mid 80s where there's momentum built.
Yeah.
And then the second one, we try to carry all the way to, the pressure just boiling apartheid out of the water.
And then season 3 is like a post...
Could be
post-evaluation
if we need it, right? If the people want it, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're open to... You're not going to do a Jesse Armstrong and say, this is the last season. You're going to like go out with season 2 and then say, so anyone want to see any more?
Right, right. Potentially,
I like it. It's a strong business model. Yeah.
It's got to be, right? In
Don't
Hollywood
close any
nowadays.
doors. Don't close any
Spike
doors.
is here, man. If we can have Spike for 3 seasons, yeah.
I mean, Spike's locked in, yeah.
It's a cup of tea.
It's not his... It is his cup of tea in this case. Love that for any listeners. Please look up Spike Lee, Not My Cup of Tea. You're going to...
Absolutely.
Enjoy yourself.
We can even put a link in the show notes. So,
Please do.
listeners, those are our 2 series that we'd like to have made. If any of you have the contacts in the industry, let us know. We might even give you a percentage of the final winnings.
I'll consider it. This is the type of thing that I'm sure is going to happen sooner or later. One of these 2 is kind of weirdly going to be made, not because anyone heard us, but just because, like, coincidentally,
we'll claim that.
No, we can. But
A la Richard Nixon.
I'm delighted that we're doing a podcast about it, because at least then I can point to it and say, look, I actually had this idea, before, if it ever does happen. So this is good. This is us going on the record. It's like in the olden days, you used to have to write something and post it to yourself, because then it would have the official stamp on it of a date. So you could bring that to court and say, hey, look, I wrote this and I posted it to myself.
Right.
And, this is like the audio version of that, where we're getting these ideas down now, so that if they ever come out, we can say, hey, come on.
We have the timestamp.
Give me a few percent. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, there we are, Neil. If you're happy with that, any parting shots for our listeners before we go?
Just as you can hear, listener, this topic is ripe for postulation. None more so than Frank from Rhode Island, who sent in the idea in the first place to cover this topic. So all I would say is, number 1, let us know what you think of our postulations. We're always interested to hear. But number 2, have we missed something? Have we missed an open goal? Is there some other topic that you think would be even better for a HBO primetime kind of series?
There's
we would love to hear. Yeah,
and they've got to come.
Please send them in, listener. But other than that, thank you for joining us on this postulative journey of ours.
Thank you. And we're looking at you, Frank from Rhode Island. We're looking at you, Roy from Chicago, who now is Roy from Cleveland.
Hey,
and,
moving around.
Yeah, moving around. How about that? And any other listener, please send us your postulations. We will share them on the next episode.
Thanks again, and talk to you next time.
Until next time, Neil Fitzpatrick joined.